Good evening and welcome to episode 103 of the HHH Racing Podcast. I'm your host, Howard Kravitz. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. If the screen looks a little bit new or different, that's right, we upgraded here on the HHH Racing Podcast. I have some better lighting, bought a brand new camera, looking sharp other than, of course, the ugly face that you have to look at, but hey, not much we can do about that. Thanks for joining me tonight. We're going to have a great show. Please make sure on the bottom right side of the screen you subscribe. Again, we have a lot of people that watch the show but haven't subscribed yet, so hit that subscription button. After you do that, hit that notification bell so you know when new content will arise, because we have a lot of new content coming on the show and a lot of exciting news that I've already mentioned. And then also smash that thumbs up button, that like button underneath the video player, so that it will tell YouTube and the viewers of YouTube to check out this episode and all the other 102 episodes of the HHH Racing Podcast. You can see on my name tag, you can follow me on Twitter. Almost 600 followers. Very excited about my Twitter handle, @HKravitz. And then you can see on the scroll at the bottom of the screen, you can reach me through email, hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Now, you can also see on the screen below, we have an impromptu last second show tomorrow morning. And you can see it there on the screen. Tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It does not say Eastern Standard Time on the screen, but it is Eastern Standard Time. So 10:30 Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, Friday morning, we will have a live show previewing the Pick Six. There's a double carryover at Aqueduct tomorrow, $195,000 plus in the pool, and it is a mandatory payout because it's the last day of 2021. So we will talk about the $1 Pick Six at Aqueduct tomorrow morning. Again, that's Friday morning, so if you watch a replay of this show after Friday morning, the show will have already occurred. But please check it out if you have any interest in that Pick Six tomorrow at Aqueduct, and you should. I'll have Paul Halloran, great guest of this show, handicapper, journalist out east. He's going to help us through the Pick Six tomorrow. A few other tidbits as well. As you know, Race Day blog. Now is a great time to get it, and actually wait till Saturday. So no matter if you're watching this live or as a replay, the Race Day blog auto-renews at the beginning of the month. So starting on Saturday would be a great time. It's only $12.99 per month. I have ABC grids. I have price plays, spot plays. I've given out a Law Professor, a lot of other really good plays on there. It's very inexpensive. It's only $12.99 for the entire month. And you get 4 or 5 editions for just $12.99. Great idea to start your handicapping pleasure in 2022. Check out the Race Day blog. Again, you'd be best to go ahead and purchase that starting Saturday as it auto-renews at the beginning of the month. Also, last thing before we talk about our wonderful guest and the late pick 5 Saturday at Santa Anita. Let me just go ahead and bring up my screen there right now on the left side. I just want to show you, we have something new going on. Here's my page. And by the way, if you'd like to just donate to the channel, on the top right-hand side screen, there is a button where you can donate just through PayPal if you just like to make a donation and help out the HHH Racing Podcast. But if you go to my main page and you scroll down, beneath the weekend previews, I now have a new section here. It's called All About Adelphi. If you've not checked out my first episode, as most of you know, I am now a owner of 2 horses through Adelphi Racing Club out of New York, and I'm doing a twice a month feature about Adelphi Racing Club and different aspects of it. And so the first edition is right there. It's under All About Adelphi. Highly recommend you go ahead and check that out. I really think you'll find that a very interesting segment as we move forward. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I am very excited to have this next guest I'm about to bring on this evening. This gentleman has accomplished a lot in a very short period of time and at a very young age. It's really quite impressive. He has worn many hats throughout the racing industry already. He's been a race caller. He's an excellent handicapper. He's been does the charts. He's just a lot of interesting things and a fascinating person to have on. And he's going to help us through this late pick 5 Saturday at Santa Anita. Let me bring on Mr. Edison Hatter. Edison, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Howard, I'm doing great. So great to have had you on my show a couple of times, and so happy to repay the favor here, and very, very happy to be on the HHH Racing Podcast.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Edison. Edison is we are co-workers, so to speak. We both work for In the Money Media. I must admit, Edison has quite a bigger following and features on In the Money, as he has a podcast called First Over with Edison Hatter. By the way, love the logo. I think some of you might know suggested you do a logo like that. I won't say who, but I think it worked out really well. Check out Edison Hatter's podcast on In the Money. Edison, I'm going to ask you a few quick questions in general, because not everyone watching the show is probably familiar with you, especially if they don't follow any type of harness racing. So you're going to see some questions on the bottom of the screen, Edison, and then we'll get into our 10 minutes of post segment. So first, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in horse racing in the first place.
Well, I had a different path, I think, than most people. Most people generally, I feel like, had some sort of family connection to get them interested in the industry, and I really didn't have that. I found it on my own on TV, believe it or not, through middle school, especially towards 8th grade. That was the year California Chrome just got defeated in the Triple Crown in Belmont. And I particularly remember at my 8th grade graduation party watching that kind of sneakily in the background while at my own graduation party. And then, obviously I really followed American Pharoah. That was the horse that really, I guess, got me into this game to really, very cool for me to, second year I was ever interested in the sport to see a Triple Crown winner. And obviously at that point I just watched, the Triple Crown races. And then, I started to kind of watch everyday racing as time went on. I finally got my dad to take me my first in-person race for the Preakness in 2017, which Cloud Computing won once I turned 18. And, from there I started to occasionally attend Laurel Park here and there, or the Timonium for the State Fair in Charlestown, and kind of got into it. And then in terms of working in the industry, that really came in September 2019, just kind of by a good, fortunate series of events. Ended up filling in race calling down at Rosecroft. Continued that, calling their Wednesday night cards down there through, the pandemic shutdown through March 2020. And then, I did a little bit of spot work for them in the fall of 2020 on the other side of the COVID shutdown. And then things really picked up for me last January, almost exactly a year ago to the day, when I started at Freehold as the full-time announcer up there. And then in April this year, I picked up the Meadowlands about 9 months ago. And then, of course, picking up my own show, my own podcast within the Money Media in August, and just kind of continuing to roll from there, hopefully.
I mean, Edison, you're 22 years old, correct?
Correct.
I mean, when I was 22, I think like most people watching the show, I was a senior in college just trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. What you've accomplished is really just absolutely incredible, and just kudos to you. I know it's taken a lot of hard work to get there, and just like everything else, a little bit of luck, a little bit of timing, but a lot of intelligence and a lot of hard work your way. We have some great viewers that watch the show. Just a few quick comments. Michael Bryant. Michael, thanks for your compliment there at the bottom of the screen and watching the show. I really appreciate it. I believe, Michael, you have a wonderful winter hat that you got from your donation to the TRF. Edison, we had a sort of a telethon, so to speak, on my 100th episode where we dedicated a lot of money to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. And so that was wonderful. And also, Michael's a fan of yours. He loves your podcast talking about the Trotters and the Pacers. You prefer the Trotters, don't you, over the Pacers, Edison?
Oh, I don't know. I guess they're both pretty good, right? Enjoy those. I enjoy thoroughbreds. Heck, I can watch quarter horses. You know me, I'll watch anything.
Absolutely. Now, you obviously have a lot of background in Trotters, Pacers, standard breds, but you also very much enjoy thoroughbred racing, and you're a very intelligent guy, and you're an excellent handicapper on both ends. Talk a little bit for people out there who are not too familiar maybe with harness racing, your difference in handicapping thoroughbreds versus standardbreds, if you think there really are any at all.
Ooh, wow, that's a tough one. Well,
this is like the 60 minutes of horse racing, Edison. Listen, this is tough, hard-hitting questions tonight.
Yeah, it is. This is a tough one because I part of my head just is blank right now, and part of me has like this 3-hour discussion to give. But
how about a 1-minute answer?
In short, I think the layoffs is maybe the first thing that comes to mind. In standardbreds, they race about every week. So if a horse is off for 4 or 5 weeks or coming back even after a couple months, it's a lot more concerning than, say, a thoroughbred like Flightline that's pretty happily bet to, 1 to 5 coming off of a 3-month layoff. So I think the layoffs are a big difference. And, I kind of like to think that standardbred racing is kind of like turf racing and thoroughbreds in that it's very trip dependent. On a turf race, if you get an outside post and you're hung 3-4 wide the whole way around the turf course, it really, really compromises your chances. And likewise, if a standardbred horse can't find the pylons early on and they end up having to, be parked or even have to do it first up, without any sort of cover, it really impacts them. So it's almost like handicapping turf horses for thoroughbreds. You kind of got to handicap trips. And I don't know, I guess I should put a third thing in here to round it out nicely, but I'm not sure if I got anything off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people that handicap horse racing and are professional players even were like myself. I actually started with harness racing. I mean, the very first handicapping I ever did was harness racing, and I think it's because it is a little bit easier for the simple fact that 98% of the races are only 1 mile. Of course, you have many different circumferences. Although I do miss those occasional like 5/8 dash that they used to have. I haven't really seen one in a while, or occasionally in the Meadowlands you'll see maybe 1.25 mile races. But you know what? 98% of races and the standardbreds are going to be 1 mile, and even with different circumferences, it is a little bit easier to handicap. Well, like you said, it's very trip dependent, and by no means is it any easier. That's for sure. You still got to do your homework and watch replays and all that other stuff. You mentioned a horse that's been talked about a lot lately, and for very good reason. And I just want to bring up Flightline for a minute because I know you have a strong opinion on Flightline that you also talked a little bit on your show First Over with Edison Hatter on In the Money. Talk a little bit your opinion of Flightline at this point.
Well, I don't know if strong is the right word, but I definitely am someone that I'm personally, and again, I'm sure I'll get bashed by people that have the exact opposite opinion of this, but I'll stand by that. I'm not that super impressed yet. I mean, he's definitely looked very good doing it. I'm not going to doubt that. But, in that maiden race, the allowance race, I'm not really sure who he beat. And honestly, I'm really not sold on Baby Yoda's 114 buyer. So the fact that Baby Yoda finishes second in that Malibu also, at least for me personally, leads me to have to ask who he even beat in the Malibu. So I don't know. And then, you're also looking at clearly a very fragile animal. If you're already claiming that you're already as of, before next year even's here already, you're saying 4 races next year. So it's kind of an interesting position. And not to mention that, once you got past that allowance in September, if you really thought you really, really had something here, I'm kind of interested in why you immediately point to the Malibu instead of maybe say a Breeders' Cup or something. So I don't know, my opinion's obviously liable to change, and, I'm curious to see what the next couple races are for him, but I don't think I'm quite as fully on the Flightline bandwagon as some people are yet.
Well, it's interesting. I had Matt Bernier on the show about a month before the Malibu. It was right before Breeders' Cup time. And I was really disappointed that Flightline was not going to the Breeders' Cup, and I sort of wondered why. I did love him in the Malibu, but I mean, he was 1-5, so I'm not saying much. I think you bring up some interesting points. He has yet to go 2 turns. He's yet to face a really good 2-turn horse. So he does have questions to answer. But boy, Edison, I don't know if is there a harness racing equivalent right now to a Flightline that you can, in your short career, that you can think of that just absolutely exploded on the scene with just crazy fast times early in his career? Is there anyone you could think of?
Gosh, I mean, obviously this year, I think the star of the sport was Venerable for some time. 2-year-old filly trotter, she kind of fell off. Test of Faith is probably looking to be possibly the horse of the year after she put together a really impressive 21 for 23 lifetime now, 13 for 15, I believe she went this year. But maybe Manchego. I mean, she, of course, has just been, superstar forever.
Yeah.
But, it's just kind of part of it that, in standardbred racing, they kind of take turns beating up on one another more than, say, thoroughbreds, just because, again, with them racing every week against one another, it's just going to naturally happen that you obviously, they're still animals, and some weeks they're just not going to have the best and, be able to rattle off, huge win streaks like that.
It's just so interesting when you look at harness racing PPs. And by the way, briefly mention what's going on tomorrow night, because for those of you people who don't know, Edison is the race caller at Rosecroft. He's also the race caller at Freehold in New Jersey. But you can also find him in the simulcast feed at the Meadowlands. And there's a big night tomorrow night for a specific reason at the Meadowlands, Edison. Can you mention what that is? Because I think some people who don't even play harness might be interested in the harness racing tomorrow at the Meadowlands.
Yeah, they definitely should be. I will not be on that simulcast feed tomorrow. I actually have the night off tomorrow. Normally I'll be at Freehold New Year's Day, so I'm excited for a little time off. I will be in the booth at Freehold tomorrow afternoon, but then I won't be back until next Thursday for Freehold Racing. But there is my own show out on it. There is a special roundtable first over with Edison Hatter that was published last night to cover a pick 5 carryover in the early pick 5 at the Meadowlands. It's a 20-cent based wager, and we have a $39,000 carryover in that wager. And obviously, Howard, as you're aware, thoroughbred harness in any world tomorrow, there's not really a whole lot of New Year's Eve night racing going on. So I think it's going to be a tremendous pool tomorrow. Kudos to our race office. It's a fantastic sequence. We're looking at full fields of 10 for 5 races. Some wide open claiming events, some wide open, series finals. So, I mean, it's just a fantastic sequence, wager, and just timing of when the sequence will take place.
Yeah, check it out. As Edison knows, I dive both into thoroughbreds and harness also, so I will definitely be checking out Edison's show and playing that pick 5. Try to get some of that early 2022 money and increase that bankroll for the year. Edison, I have a segment that I really much enjoy, and my guests enjoy as well, and it is called 10 Minutes to Post. 10 Minutes to Post. Edison, I'm going to ask you 10 rapid-fire questions. Edison has no idea what these questions are. I will tell you, Edison, they are 5 horse racing questions and 5 non-horse racing questions. We'll learn more about Edison, and then we'll get into our handicapping. Are you ready?
I am ready as I'll be.
All right, here we go. First time you fell in love with horse racing.
So I think I already hinted towards this, but, watching the end of 8th grade there at my graduation party, watching California Chrome was really just kind of what got me in love with the sport. And, I did get one other supporter that day. My aunt, my dad's sister, actually watched it with me. She didn't know a whole lot about the sport either, but at least someone else to kind of talk a little bit about, our limited knowledge. And Howard, I don't know if you knew it, but just to throw in a random fact here, just recently my family just got in our own thoroughbred ownership and purchased hip number 314 at Timonium this past December at the sale, and it's Adana, who is a California Chrome filly. So I personally feel like I really got the full circle here to now own a California Chrome filly.
Wow, that's very exciting, Edison. I don't know if you heard me at the beginning of the show or you've heard, but I announced last week I am also a horse owner for the first time ever. I have part ownership of 2 horses through a Delphi Racing Club in New York with my brother, and it's not a micro share. I won't say the amount, but it's a pretty decent size portion of a 2-year-old two yearlings. They're about to turn 2. A Street Sense filly and a Taproot colt. So very excited. They'll be racing New York. Fingers crossed. Maybe starting next summer. They're in turn 2. So listen, hopefully both of us are going to have some fun in the owners. It's a very tough game. I'm sure we're just hoping to just have some fun with it because it's very speculative. But congratulations to you. That's exciting. Most memorable horse racing event ever attended. Let's keep it to the thoroughbreds.
Oh, the 2018 Preakness, like I said, my dad first took me to Preakness in 2017, and I've attended pretty much every one since. And, of course, I always enjoy those. But, 2018 in particular, of course, Justify. So, to actually get a chance to witness in person one of the Triple Crown races was just a great thing. And not only that, but I'm pretty proud of the superfecta that I managed to put together. Now, at that point, I was playing pretty small bankroll. So I think I threw together like a $21 superfecta ticket, which for me was a lot of money to put in there. And I think it paid 38. So, I know not the world's best, but, for a completely novice person to walk out of the track $17 more than they walked in with, I was pretty proud of it. I didn't bet anything else all day. So
it'll pay for the hot dogs and the soft drinks. By the way, those of you who are watching, please make sure you comment in the live chat. We have many people watching right now. Please place your comments there up in the top right hand side of the screen, and also down below, if you wouldn't mind commenting on what you think of the sort of new format, not new format, but I think I've improved lighting, better camera. If you'd like to just talk about how the show looks in general, I would appreciate that also. All right, now this is sort of a tricky question, but I think we'll get an interesting answer to you. Your most embarrassing moments on air, it can be either as a race caller or someone analyzing the races. And you don't have to keep it PG if you don't want to, but knowing you probably made no mistakes, but anything that comes to mind, you're like, oops, that shouldn't have happened.
Okay, well, I'm going to say 2 things I can think of. You said it does not have to be PG?
Nope.
Okay, well, then I've got 2 answers for you. I got 2 of them here then. Well, number 1 is, I'm glad my colleague cared to tell me about this. I never thought about it. We have this one horse at Freehold that races with us all the time, and his name is Astor. It's Astor.
Oh, boy.
I said Astor for the longest time, and I never really thought about the connotation there, so it wasn't maybe my brightest moment. But most recently, I'm not sure if it's really embarrassing per se, but I know back Breeders' Crown weekend and Breeders' Cup weekend, I was working through a little bit of a cold, tested, proven non-COVID, that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, I still worked and, was starting to lose my voice a little bit. It's always kind of annoying to me when I'm coughing in the middle of a race call or starting to lose my voice and, kind of have to work through it. But on that note, I'm not sure if you watched the quarters much, Howard, but I got to give credit to Michael Rona, who on that Champion of Champions weekend powered through with that cold. That was much more than I had. Incredible to him to, on the biggest weekend of the year out there, power through and call those races.
That was the night of the Deuce, I believe they call it, right? The $2 million race?
Yeah, $2 million race, and he basically had no voice left by the end of that, but I give him
it's unbelievable
for getting through it.
Edison, you got some more fans here. C Money got to meet you. Met you at a race caller workshop at the Meadowlands. So I'd love to talk to you about that some other time. That sounds like a lot of fun. And perhaps the biggest fan on this show that's a harness guy, it says Carolyn, it's actually Jim. He's going to be at Buffalo Raceway with a big group for New Year's Day. Just so that you know, Edison, Jim has actually won some handicapping contests. He won a national handicapping contest at the Meadowlands. Jim, if you want to type in what year that was, I'd be happy to share that with Edison. But Jim is a huge harness guy and has actually sort of gotten more into horse racing or thoroughbred racing because of this show. So, Jim, thanks for joining the show tonight. Let's see, he's all said. You want to answer that question? Will Gabe Pruitt be with you on the Meadowlands? Actually, you're not going to be there. He might not. He just probably caught the end. But is Gabe Pruitt going to be on the Meadowlands broadcast tomorrow?
He will not be. Nope. He will be hanging in South Florida, working through that Pompano, the last ever meet down at Pompano. And
okay.
That's kind of an Arlington type trip. If you haven't made it yet, down to Pomp this winter.
Yeah, actually, I was in Florida last week, but I was in Ocala and I was in Sarasota. I didn't have a chance to go to Pompano, but it's a shame that they're closing. All right, let's get on to the next question here real quick. I got to switch. All right, are you a vertical or horizontal bettor?
Oh, I am most certainly a horizontal bettor. As I said, every time someone asks me that, I always have to think about which one means what for half a second. said I always got to think about it. But yeah, no, I mean, I said this on my shows whenever I talk about super high fives or big carryovers and those kind of wagers. I'll put together tickets and I'll play them, but I don't really do it that happily, if I'm being honest. I really just love, and I've loved it since day one when I got into the sport, the fact that I can put in a ticket in the first race in like an early pick five. Grab a beer and grab a hot dog and relax for 2.5 hours. My bet's in and I'm good to go, So I'm a huge fan of the horizontals. And, I think it's difficult it's tough enough for me to pick winners. I'm not going to worry about trying to pick the fourth place horse.
By the way, your vertical horizontal thing is my underlay overlay. I always have to take a half second, oh, wait, should I say underlay or overlay? See, it's the opposite for me. So overlay means under bet. That's how I think about it. Sort of the opposite. Do you have a favorite horse? And we can go thoroughbred or harness here.
Oh, let's see. Well, on the harness side, I said this in the DRF interview earlier this summer, a random one. Macho McGraw, this might be the harness horse that got me into the harness sport. He is now 6 for 270 in his career. He has not won in 3 years. And the last time that he won got me a nice pick 3 score, which again at the time translated to like a $4 ticket, returning $130. Again, brand new to the sport, so to walk out with $125 was incredible. It was the week right after I graduated high school, so it was a whole bunch of senior week. We were all down at the beach, and everyone else is out drunk, whatever. I'm here betting the horses at the racetrack in the Downs, and I have no idea how I landed on the horse, but he wants me, and I don't even know what odds to pay that pick 3. And I've always been a big fan of him, and I think retirement's unfortunately coming soon for him, but I've always loved him. For the thoroughbred side, so I guess I mentioned California Pro, American Pharoah, Justify, Justify seeing in person, obviously, American Pharoah, Triple Crown, really getting into it, and California Pro, the first one I really fell in love with.
Yeah, listen, those are all unbelievable horses. Where did that harness horse run at, mainly?
He has purely been a Maryland circuit. He has been Ocean Downs, Rosecroft, and he just finished with us at Rosecroft this past the winter, and presumably, I guess he's coming back this spring. But again, he's not won in a couple years, so it might be time soon.
Love those warriors. All right, let's get into 5 non-horse racing questions for the most part. And again, not everyone knows your background, Edison, so they're going to learn more about you through these questions. Which is more difficult? Solving a difficult mathematical equation or engineering problem, or hitting a complex pick 5 sequence?
Gosh, I guess I'm just going to take the easy road out and say they're both difficult in their own ways.
Oh, come on. Riding the fence as usual.
Okay, how about more difficult? I'm going to say solving the mathematical equation just because, if it's a complex pick 5 sequence, that's probably when I don't play it. or the very
Okay.
least I'm investing my own money. If my job is to solve the problem for work, I kind of gotta solve it somehow. Pick 5 sequence I kind of give up on and put aside. So I guess maybe the mathematical equation engineering problem.
Just very briefly, tell people what you do other than the horse racing business.
Yeah, so obviously, and most people know a lot of my racing stuff happens on the weekends, like Thursday to Sunday. So during the week, I work full-time at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center down in Greenbelt, Maryland as an engineer. And right now, in particular, working on a SARSAT, which is Search and Rescue Satellite-Aided Tracking, which is how we find people lost. We got beacons, trackers, blah, blah, blah. I go on forever about that. And also
Wow.
Artemis, which is the mission to eventually get out to Mars. So first step is, of course, getting humans back to the moon and then on to Mars. And
Wow.
I guess that's the 30-second answer.
I mean, most people that I bring on this show, I feel like I can out math them. I'm a high school math teacher. I've been a high school math teacher for 25 years, Edison. I feel like I'm pretty well versed in math, but I will not mess with someone who is a NASA engineer. That's for sure. So no math questions tonight. Who is Stanford women's volleyball's toughest opponent / biggest rival? And again, you're gonna have to explain to people why in the world I'd be asking you that question.
Oh, well, Howard, I've been wearing it tonight. I've got on last year's national championship women's volleyball shirt. I've got
I see it
shirt underneath of it. Without many family members interested in sports, I just kind of discovered sports on my own. So this was just another one that I turned on TV one day and was interested by it. So no reason other than that I just have always followed women's volleyball and in particular Stanford. And their toughest opponent, biggest rival, well, you see, Stanford went through a dynasty period. They had a senior class that graduated in 2019. In particular, Morgan Hentz, Catherine Plummer, and Jenna Gray were their three really big stars on that team. They're all three playing internationally overseas at this point. And Catherine was almost an Olympian this year for the U.S., actually, and probably likely will be in 2024. So that team won 3 of 4 national titles in a row, and very well probably should have won the 4th one. And the toughest opponent and rivals in there were probably Nebraska and Wisconsin, who had fantastic programs, which is why this year, even though Stanford got eliminated in the second round of the tournament, the national championship game 2 weeks ago featured Nebraska and Wisconsin with a lot of fifth-year seniors, Lawrence Deverance for Nebraska and Dana Rettke for Wisconsin, the big ones, that have both just kind of been waiting and deserving of a national title for so long. So I really enjoyed that match. It was a good 3-hour, 5-set match that Wisconsin eventually won, but I really would have loved to see both those teams win the title. But to answer the question, yeah, I would say recently it's been Wisconsin and Nebraska, but nowadays, obviously, you got to go with the Pac-12 schools. Cal especially. The big spike, the battle between Cal and Stanford every year.
Yeah, the West Coast teams are always really good. Congratulations to Wisconsin, first ever national championship. And by the way, I know there's probably not a lot of interest in women's volleyball viewers on this show, but the match point was just fantastic. It was a long rally. It was really exciting. I actually played a little volleyball back in the day, but no one wants to hear about me. All right, let's move on. We have 2 more questions, actually 3 quick questions, then we're into handicapping, folks. Favorite professional sports team?
Oh, gosh. I'm just going to list all of them real quick and just call it a day instead of trying to pick one in particular. So for baseball, Baltimore Orioles, good suffering fan. We're really, really thriving right now. Football, Baltimore Ravens. So that's my 2 local teams I keep on. And obviously the Ravens are not exactly thriving right now either. Now, basketball, this is kind of like Stanford volleyball. I got into the Orlando Magic first. And that was, luckily, I got into them in like 2009 when we were actually decent. So that's gone downhill since then. And for hockey, it's the Anaheim Ducks, who I got into when they were no we're still pretty bad. So, no one's thriving right now for any of my sports teams.
Wow. But, at least you're loyal. I like that. You're not going to, jump around different people. Favorite athlete growing up?
Oh, wow. Wow, that's a tough one.
Would it be a Stanford women's volleyball player?
Gosh, that is a really, really tough question. Wow. I guess maybe this one half pains me to have to say, but again, baseball was my big sport for quite some time. So I always remember, at least whenever he rehabbed or got injured or whatever, Chris Davis was always a really nice guy with the Orioles. I got one of his bats from a game that they broke and gave me after the game. So he was always just a really nice guy, and I always looked up to him. And obviously, those last couple years for the Orioles were painful for him and the fans, unfortunately. But if we can remember the good times,
he's good.
2013 when he had 53 home runs was really exciting to watch.
He's actually underrated. He's very good. Last question, then we're into handicapping. Finish this sentence. I know it sounds like an SAT or ACT. In 5 years, I see myself.
Oh, gosh. Well, you know what? I forget who I said this to recently, but one of my friends was asking me something, and I guess my answer was, I plan to just kind of continue what I'm doing until someone tells me to stop or something else comes up, I guess. So, honestly, if I see myself exactly where I am today, I'm kind of okay with that. we're working close to 100 hours a week. 40 for NASA, combined with like 20 for Freehold, 20 for the Meadowlands, 10 for Rosecroft, and 10 for my show for In the Money Media. So between all of that, it's a lot. It keeps me busy, but I guess I'm young and I'll keep doing it while I can.
I'd say you just keep doing what you're doing, Edison, because you are fantastic at everything that you're doing right now. So congratulations for all those things and keep it going. All right, Edison, we got a lot of people listening tonight. They want to know about the Pick 5 sequence at Saturday that we're going to crush. I'm going to go ahead and bring the PPs on the screen here for everyone to see, and we will, of course, talk about this great sequence. Now, the Pick 5 on Santa Anita on Saturday are the only graded stake races in the entire country. Now, I will say the field sizes are a bit small. That's the only, I guess, disappointing aspect of this Pick 5 sequence. But there are a lot of interesting ways that you can go. And I think it's going to be really interesting to hear what Edison has to say. And Edison, you're going to see your picks and my picks on the bottom of the screen for each race. H is going to be Howard. E for Edison. Let's start off with the first race of this sequence. It starts at approximately 6:30 Eastern Standard Time on Saturday. They're going down the hill, 6.5 furlongs. There are several grade stakes in the sequence. This is the grade 2 Joe Hernandez stakes. It's for 4-year-olds and up males. Now, before we talk, I will say they've gotten a lot of rain in California, not only last week, but this week. They canceled races today, but that was planned. It is going to be nice weather tomorrow and then on Saturday, but I would expect this turf course to have some given it, number one. And then number two, I'm not 100% guaranteed they'll be on the downhill turf course. They'll be on the turf, but they might, Edison, run on out of the chute, which is new as of 2 years ago, but they can still run at 6.5. I just want to make that aware to everyone out there that they might not be running down the hill, but it still should be at 6.5 regardless. Edison, you're going with the 5-2, I believe, morning line favorite in this race for Mark Glatt and a pretty darn good rider, Flavian Pratt, Beer Can Man.
Yeah, obviously you sent me this stuff last night. I sent you my picks back early this morning, so obviously we did all this without morning lines, and I always seem to kind of have a knack, I guess, for agreeing with the morning line odds maker, it seems like. But, I go with the one, Beer Can Man on top. Comes off of a victory last time out, earned a 94 buyer for it. That was down at Del Mar. Before that, I actually shipped over for the Turf Monster over at Parks over in Bensalem, Pennsylvania. Finished second in there, and, it's been in pretty good form, 5 for 10 here lifetime, and, gosh, Howard's going to be the same thing as I said in my show a lot. So I guess he was 4 for 4 last year, finishing first or second, 2 wins, 2 seconds. And that was last year because technically this year, as of when this race will be run, I guess he's 0 for 0.
Yeah, exactly. He's been very consistent and very good. And your second choice is a horse that you can see on my screen that I'm very interested in also. The 6, Momos, 4-1 morning line, Trombetta, and Johnny Velasquez, who's riding out in Santa Anita this winter.
Yeah, you're looking at a horse that comes off of the dirt last time out over at Churchill Downs. But before that, it had some turf experience, Woodbine, Belmont, Saratoga, Monmouth. Saw a lot of different turf courses there and performed pretty well on all of those. So overall, I think it's definitely one to include there in the numbers. And I also think this one has some pretty good speed along with the one. I think those two are for sure going to be maybe battling it out early on down the hill.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm going to go ahead and put us back on the screen here before I talk about my selection. So I'm not a huge fan of turf sprints. I've talked about this. I do like the down the hill races. What I don't like is the 5 furlong races at Gulfstream. I absolutely can't stand at all. I don't mind 5.5 or 6. I found this race to be very, very difficult. Let me talk about my top choice, and everyone just give me a few minutes on this one. Chewing Gum is my top choice, and I have a lot of reasons why I like this horse. He's 5-1 morning line. This is for Bill Mott and Roberto Rispoli. I've chased this horse quite a bit, Edison, so maybe I'm just being stubborn here. But if you look at the PPs very carefully, especially those of you that are not familiar with Timeform US, when you see these blue numbers, that means it was a very slow pace. Red numbers are a fast pace, and then black numbers are neutral. Chewing Gum has been involved in general, either moderate to slow paced races. You see 2 back, he was involved in a slow pace and still closed very well against Arrest Me Red. Last time at Aqueduct, Arrest Me Red again wired the field. 3 back at the race at Kentucky Downs, gear jockey won for being up close. So Chewing Gum has been involved in several races where the pace is just held together. Not only that, Edison, I think he's faced much tougher horses. There's no gear jockeys in here. There's no Casa Creeds. There's no fast boats. Arrest Me Red is a nice horse. I think with Rispoli, this shows a lot of intent, in my opinion. I don't know if there's going to be a blazing fast pace in here either, but I like the extra half furlong. I like what I believe is a class drop. And I like the fact that Mott is sending this horse out to California, where I think the competition is not quite as difficult. So because of all those reasons, I'm very, very interested in Chewing Gum. I do agree with you on the number 6, Momos. In theory, he's slower, but Edison, this horse looks absolutely loose. Loose as can be on the lead. This is not a horse that I want to toss out. And I'm also throwing the number 5 in their commander. Ruben Alvarado has 2 of them. Ruben Alvarado has now taken over the training for Peter Miller, by the way. For those people that are not familiar with that name, Ruben Alvarado. This horse is consistent. He can run well down the hill, and I think he's also interesting. What I don't like about the number 1, very briefly, Edison, and listen, Beer Man can win, but Mark Ladd has kept him at 5 furlongs. That tells me that I'm not sure he wants the 6.5. If you go back, his best races are at 5. Now, maybe he's just in such good form, it's not going to matter. I'm a little against Beer Can Man in this spot, but he can obviously win the race. So this is, to me, a very difficult race. Many horses can win. Let's go ahead on to the 7th race. The next race, this is a grade 3. And this is sort of the beginning of the sort of road to the Triple Crown for the races out in California. This is a short 5-horse field, but a good one. It's the grade 3 Sham. They're going a mile on dirt for restricted 3-year-olds. And there are 2 Bob Bafferts in this race. And you're going with one of them for Flavian Pratt, Rockefeller.
Yeah, Howard. I mean, I guess as usual, if you could get a Baffert entry, we're in agreement. It'd be a very short price. We're just kind of inverting our top 2 here in the exacta. But I'll take Rockefeller on top over Newgrange just because of, I think, the experience factor that's there. Won the debut first time out. Both of them did, actually. But since then, Rockefeller has finished 4th in a graded stakes event at Santa Anita and ends up winning the grade 3 Nashua up at Belmont. So coming back out here to California, I think this one just kind of has a little bit of an experience edge right now over of Newgrange, and I'm kind of taking that angle here. And I think they both, though, for sure, have a lot of early speed.
And why don't you go and talk about Newgrange a little bit as well?
Yeah, and for Newgrange, maybe just kind of a couple steps further behind Rockefeller in the sense that, in fact, they earned identical 80 buyer speed figures in their debuts. Both went 6 furlongs. They were both at Del Mar. It's just that the race happened in August, and for Newgrange, the race happened in November. So, this one just might be a little bit further behind the stablemate per se, but they're both obviously, in Baffert's care and obviously with pretty good potential. But Howard, sorry, I'm not sure if you want me to mention this, if you want to go down the controversial route a little bit, but some of these horses kind of get interesting for me, though, since obviously these horses really aren't eligible for the points considering the Baffert situation with the Derby next year. So that in itself is maybe something at least a little interesting in my mind to keep an eye on.
Oh, no, it's definitely interesting. I've talked about it on my show. And by the way, both these horses are owned by Starlight Racing also. So I'm assuming they're both going to be going, Edison. I want to show a little bit of the replay of my top choice in number 3, Newgrange, because I thought this was a very good effort first time out. I think it was a little better than it looks. We're going to go ahead and fast forward here. He's the 5 in this race. What I like about first of all, he breaks on top. You see in the Starlight there, blue and yellow. He breaks on top. It looks like he's rateable. So this is not like some kind of runoff speed horse, Edison, which I like that a lot. You see he's just tracking 3 wide. I'm going to fast forward. What I really like here is you're going to see the number 2 come to his outside, Edison. And Newgrange wanted to be used a little bit earlier than I think the jockey won. You see the 2 ranges up here. And now Newgrange is forced to go ahead on with it when he could have sat a little longer. You see the 2 is really pressing on him here on the outside. And you see the jockey's hands there. He's got to go ahead and ask. And he goes on with it very well. I like the way he finishes. I'll just go ahead and show the finish here. And I also like the gallop on. You see that, and the horse on the inside, by the way, is a nice horse as well. So Newgrange, to me, I think will be better stretching out. You see the gallop out here. See, he gallops out very nicely in hand, still in front of the field. So there's a lot of things I like about this horse. I understand he's giving up experience quite a bit, but if you look at the breeding of Newgrange, let me go ahead and show that for everyone here. You see the siblings here of the dam really were sort of two-turn horses. I'm just going to scroll through, and you see a lot of these horses went two turns. And then if you look at the family tree and you go to the second dam, Bella Chiara, this was also a very nice two-turn horse, Edison, who won some stake races. Actually was second at Pimlico, in the Pimlico Distaff, right around your neck of the woods. And so this horse obviously is bred to go two turns. I like that as well. He's obviously giving up experience. Listen, to me, it's one of the Bafferts, in my opinion. Let me just go up to the other two, and then we'll move on. You have McKinnon in third, a very nice horse, switching from turf to dirt. He's been working well, though, on dirt, Edison, so maybe he can just handle it.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much highlighted why I like him. I mean, I think, well, okay, well, those ways. He's raced on dirt once. We saw that 4.5 Santa Anita, very young early as a 2-year-old, and obviously there was not a whole lot there. So he's gotten a lot of experience since then, and he's gone so far as to finish third in the Breeders' Cup. So he clearly likes the turf, and to be honest with you, I'm guessing you're looking at a case here where the connections just kind of want to see where they're at and see if they could have a horse that theoretically gets to the Derby, but nonetheless, I think he's got some class over the rest of the field with that Breeders' Cup race, and maybe just the class is what maybe gets him along here in that third spot, but and obviously in the short field.
Yeah, Horsey Dave, thanks for joining the show. He just has a few comments there. He thought the 5 was a little bit interesting. Oviatt Class was originally going to be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, by the way. I don't have the backstory on him. I didn't have time to research it. I apologize for everyone out there. I thought he was an interesting horse. Actually, he was in the Juvenile. I apologize. He was in the Juvenile, but that did not work out. He got off slow. He checked. He steadied. And, of course, Cornetius wired the field. And the whole pace complexion changed with the scratch on the inside of a Pletcher horse. So Oviatt Class had no chance. I think he's a bit interesting. But Edison, as I bring us back on screen, it's just hard for me to believe that the Bafferts are going to duel each other. I mean, I'm sure the instructions is for one to go and for one to sit. Don't you see it that way?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we see a lot in harness racing too. Sometimes it's difficult to handicap stablemates just because you're not exactly sure what you're going to see out of both of them. But and sometimes then you might say, oh well, for the sake of the owners, the trainers probably just got to tell both jockeys to go, and run their own races. Whatever happens, happen. Well, in this case, it's the same ownership, so. Yeah, for sure. You got to think the insiders there in that camp probably have some idea of what the early pace scenario looks like, and maybe that does kind of hold the key to this race.
Yeah, it looks like one of these Bafferts is going to win the race. You can just pick which one you'd like to go with, unless something strange happens or one of those other horses really steps up. Let's go to race 8. This is another grade stakes, the grade 3, 1.8 on the turf. It's the Robert J. Frankel Stakes. This is for older fillies and mares. This is a field of 7. And we are both landing on the favorite, who hopefully will not live up to her name because hopefully she won't need luck. She'll just be that good. It's luck.
Well, to be fair, when we looked at this originally, I thought just kind of, with the resume of Neutral and Usual, I thought that would end up being your favorite in here. So personally, at least in my mind, I was maybe a little surprised to see Luck ending up the morning line favorite. But for sure, those are the two I landed on, and clearly the two you landed on too, Howard. But Luck here, comes off of, first of all, was racing over in France early on in the career and appears to have done over there pretty well against some allowance company, a couple of wins there, a 6th place finish in a stakes event. But since coming to the U.S., coming in here for Richard Baltus, has that victory against the optional claimers, then went up to a grade 1, only loses there by a head to going to Vegas, and then only loses again by a head in the grade 3 in the red carpet on Thanksgiving Day out at Del Mar. So clearly is one that's been racing pretty well, is pretty lightly raced here, just 3 for 7 as a 5-year-old, but and I also have that 2nd place effort here in a grade 1 event over the Santa Anita turf course.
And you're going with the aforementioned number 2, Mucho Unusual, who, boy, this mare, 6-year-old, about to turn 7, well, actually will be 7 on the day of the races, is just as honest as she comes. She's 17 for 22 lifetime and just in absolute raging form right now.
I'm thinking, Howard, just taking a look up at one race here. The Sam, those horses are all 3 according to the program here. So I think that is turn 6 years old on January 1st, I believe.
Oh, you know what? I apologize. You're right
I think
because
that's what we're going with. Yeah, I know because it kind of takes.
my
We
I'm
have the
sorry.
harness racing 2 programs this week, trying to figure out for sure if this program's
I don't
going
know
to
what I was
be.
thinking.
So,
You're right. Go ahead. Go ahead. She'll be
but
6.
anyway,
She'll be 6 on Saturday.
yeah, and likewise, Luck will be 5 on Saturday. I guess she's currently 4. But looking at Mutual Unusual, I really did think this would be the morning line favorite, just because I mean, look at all the Grade 1 races in there, and not to mention some victories in there as well. I mean, all these graded races that she has been in. She just has such an impressive body of work here. She's 8 for 22 lifetime. She went 2 for 4 last year after 2 wins from 7 starts in 2020. And in particular, comes off of a nice victory. Obviously, it was the 3-5 favorite against Optional Claiming Company. But she's made good home base here at Santa Anita. She's 6 for 12 over this turf course. So, if that's the better price at post time, maybe that's kind of my selection here, honestly, because I thought these two were pretty similar to me on paper, and I honestly just kind of, in some sense, took Luck because I really didn't. I'm just personally surprised she's the morning line favorite. That's just me.
Yeah, the morning line folks, come out late. Actually, they come out this morning, so it's always interesting to handicap these races without the morning line. Horsey Dave has a good question here, and this is something that I thought about also, Edison, when I was looking at this. Do you think Mucho Unusual will have the lead, or do you think Mraz, the number 4, will have the lead? Because the pace scenario in this race is a bit murky. There's just not a lot of really speed at all.
Yeah, that's gonna be something interesting, and that's the other thing. I think in harness racing, it happens more often that if you could just know what the order of the horses is at the first quarter, you really could pick a lot more winners. But I think that's
for sure.
true in harness and thoroughbreds too. A lot of this is trying to figure out a pace scenario, who's gonna get the right kind of trip. So I'm guessing one of those two is probably gonna be on the lead early on. And yeah, I'm not really sure who's gonna necessarily want per se out of the gate, but I mean, given that bullet from Mraz on December 27th. I mean, worked the fastest of 111 and 5 furlongs there on the dirt. Maybe she's the one that's ready to go out of the gate. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
I will be happy to answer that question. I'd be shocked, Horsey Dave, shocked that Perez not have the lead. Not only the bullet that Edison mentioned, but she's got a 97 early pace, time form U.S. pace figure, and the number 2, Mucho Unusual, has an 83. Now, again, you don't know how they're going to break. There's intent. There's a lot of things. But a 10-point difference, Edison, in the early time form U.S. is pretty significant. So I'm pretty sure Mraz is going to go. Although, honestly, I don't think Mraz can get the distance. And the one thing about the reason why I didn't put Mucho Unusual on top, I'm not sure a 1.8 is the best distance for this mare. I think she might be a little bit better going shorter. Now, I know that might seem, incorrect based on the fact that you look at her PPs. I mean, she's got a 94 going 1.25 miles. You look earlier last year, she ran, some nice figs. But I just think watching her run, I've seen her run a lot, Edison. I think she might be a little bit better going shorter. Luck, to me, is better than the number 2. I don't know how much better, but is better. The race 2 back, Edison, was just spectacular. She closed like an absolute train, just missed going to Vegas, who was actually in the Breeders' Cup. So going to Vegas would probably be 3 to 5 in this spot. And then last time just got caught up in a very, very, very slow pace and still closed well, but just couldn't beat Neige Blanche. It was a long shot. However, the horse that finished 3rd, Edison, is our horse called Nicest, who just ran 2nd last weekend in the Grade 1 American Oaks, although it was on dirt. So the form holds up. I think Flavian will just sit. I think she's the classiest horse. Listen, she's 8 to 5. I'm not really giving anything creative here, but I think Luck is the best horse and most likely winner in this race. All right, Edison, we got 2 more races left to talk about. Let's go to the 9th race. This is a field of 6. Let me go ahead and switch our picks here. This is the Grade 3 La Cañada Stakes. It's for older filly mares on the dirt. They're going 1 mile and 1/16. And we are both, again, going a little chalky, Edison, but listen, I'm going to go ahead and bring this on the screen here because I do want to mention something. I don't know how Edison feels, but folks, I'm not going to BS you out there. I'm not going to just throw out big price horses just for the sake of doing it. I have to go with my gut. I think there is a way to get paid in this pick 5, and Edison, we'll talk about it here when we're done handicapping these last 2 races. Even though there are short fields, you can still get paid. But Edison, just like myself, we're going with the chalk here for Bob Baffer and Flavian Pratt as time goes by.
Yeah, I mean, for the 6 horse, you're looking at a horse that had 4 wins from 9 starts last year. And once again, just kind of looking over this field, I mean, you're looking at a horse to the inside is coming out of an optional claiming race. Likewise, the 4, the other Baffert horses as well. So is the 3 horse, 2 horse coming out of an allowance race, and then you get to the 1, who's the only other one coming out of a Grade 3 race, and she has only raced 6 times in her life, 2 of them in graded stakes races. And then let's go back to as time goes by and just look at the body of work that she's put in these last 10 or so races, starting with the Beholder Mile, a Grade 1 event. And since then, she's raced in 3 other Grade 1s events. She's got a victory in a Grade 3 last time out, a second in a Grade 2. I don't believe she's won a Grade 1 yet, nor do I think she's actually at the board yet and won. Or rather, she finished second in that Beholder Mile. So you're looking at a horse that's clearly the class of this field. And again, it's pretty sharp right now, coming off of a victory in the Bayacoa up at Los Alamitos. And that included a victory over the one here who she will see once again, and that is Moonlight Oro, who I ended up taking in third, I believe.
I got an interesting question for you. I just want to bring it back on screen just real quick. Harness versus thoroughbreds with speed. Do you prefer inside, outside? Is it completely depend on the circumference of the track in harness racing? I always felt like in horse racing in general with the thoroughbreds, I don't mind being the outside best speed because they can break and just see what happens. I suppose it's the same thing in harness, but it sort of feels like in harness racing it's better to be inside of the 2 speeds. I don't know why I feel that way. It just seems to work out better when you're on the inside with harness racing and maybe more on the outside with horse racing, with thoroughbreds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's another question that obviously could go on for hours and hours about. So for a brief answer, in harness racing, I think your best spot's in the middle of the gate, in general speaking, especially like Rosecroft's a great example. The inside, the 1 post is actually kind of on a bank track, so it's kind of, you're buried underneath there. It's not really a great spot to be, actually. The outside, of course, especially like a 10-horse field, the Meadowlands is a great example. You're just so far out there, it's almost tough to cross over, it becomes a difficulty at some level. So I think like post 4, 5, or 6 is really good for harness racing. For thoroughbreds, yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think outside, within reason, is good. I mean, obviously, especially like in a turf race, if you're post 12 in the speed, you've got to figure out how you're crossing this bunch before you get into a turn. But in a field like this with 6 of them, and you're theoretically on the best horse if you're Flavian Pratt, I think it's good to be able to see how everyone else breaks and decide which you want to do. But I mean, me personally, as a handicapper, I've always been like this. I think when I started, just because I knew at the very least, if I pick the horse that I know is going to be in front early on, I've at least got a little blood pumping that I'm going to get there possibly. But I've always just loved betting early speed. I mean, obviously, I can be one to look at it. And if I see 2 horses are just going to duel each other into submission through a 44 half, I won't bet either one of them. But otherwise, within reason, I just love betting front end speed, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah, listen, speed kills. It's good whether it's harness racing, thoroughbreds, camels, NASCAR, whatever you want. I want to talk about the 5 just for a minute because I think Park Avenue is very, very interesting. Now, I don't know if the pace scenario is going to set up because I really wish there was a speed horse to go with as time goes by. I'm not sure there is, but Park Avenue was extremely impressive last time. I just want to show a little bit of the replay for the viewers at home. Park Avenue is the 11 horse here on the outside. Now, Los Alamitos, let me go full screen. At Los Alamitos, the outside is better. You don't want to be on the inside. But Park Avenue, the 11 right here, was really wide. I mean, you don't want to be in the 5-6 path. And as you watch Park Avenue here on the first turn, Edison, I mean, she is absolutely in the parking lot. I mean, this is very wide. Now, granted, this is a much softer field that she's going to face. But you see how wide she is there, right? Now I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to later in the race there. And you'll see she's out here in the green silks there. And she's still in that 5-6 path. And you see it was a pretty quick pace too. So she lost a lot of ground. You see making another wide sweeping move here on the second turn. This is sort of a similar trip that Law Professor, a horse that I liked last weekend, won at 4-1. You can see she's still very wide here. And I'll go ahead and bring it into the stretch. I mean, she won easily, was never asked really. This is a hand ride. So when you see this 85 buyer, I mean, look how easily she's doing this, Edison. This is really, really impressive to me. I think this is an up-and-coming horse. I don't know if the trip's going to work out for her on Saturday, but I am very, very interested in the number 5 in this race. Again, at least underneath Park Avenue. I know, she's 3-1. So I'm not giving anyone like a 30-1 shot. But Edison, I'm using her equally with the 6. And that might be bad, decision. But I gotta try to be some of these favorites. I'm thinking maybe the number 5 Park Avenue will be the one. We have some comments here on the screen from people. Let me just bring up a few. High risk. Thanks for joining the show. High risk liked England's Rose in the last race, the 3 horse, who's an improving horse. I think she's a bit interesting. Horsey Day. These are tough races, small fields, low odds. Everyone's closely placed. I'm not so sure I agree with that, Horsey Day, but yes, there are smaller fields. We're going to talk about how you get paid in this sequence. All right, let's go ahead and last race, Edison. We're coming up on 1 hour into the show here, and I appreciate your time. Now, the last race, Edison, as I go ahead and bring up our picks there. We're a little bit different here in the last race. The last race of the sequence, the closeout leg, 6 furlongs on the turf. This is through the chute. This is not the downhill. This is for state breds, 4-year-olds and up. Optional claiming 20,000. Now winners of 1 lifetime. And you said you like speed, and you are a man of your word because you're going with probably one of the better speed horses in this race. The number 7, Riding with Dino.
Well, I thought maybe this is the race. Maybe I'd see some prices, but I'm now looking at the morning line odds. Obviously, like I said, I handicapped this without them, and now looking at them, it looks like I picked quite a few favorites in this race too. But yeah, that's the reason I like this one is just looking at the speed that he's shown in recent efforts. Obviously, he hasn't quite gotten it done here since coming back from that nearly 1.5-year layoff. But, has been racing on the turf lately, these last 4 this year in this form cycle. And has 2/3, 2 seconds, has been knocking on the door. The 2 seconds have come most recently, and now picks up Flavian Pratt as well on top of that. So, definitely I think is one to include here. And with the speed here, I think could very well go all the way. And at least not the favorite. It looks like the 4 will end up being the favorite on the morning line here, which is one that I know we both include as well.
Yeah, I'm a little against Ryan with Dino, and I will fully say that I could lose the pick 5 with this horse winning. I thought Riding with Dino ran very well 2-back. Last time Edison was awful. I know he ran second by a head and it looks good. 0 excuses. I'm not going to show the replay, Edison. Maybe it was just too short. I don't know. And obviously Flavian is an upgrade, although Drain Van Dyke's obviously a nice rider. But, it's Flavian Pratt. I don't know. That last race just really bothers me, Edison. The horse that I like, and I like this horse quite a bit. And in fact, if I had to just take a stand in this race, I would single the number 4, Aligato, who again, by the numbers, Edison doesn't really look any better, than anyone else. But 2-back ran very well. I mean, in that maiden breaker, had trouble and won as easily as can be. And last time, I'm just going to show the start. It says crowded, and he was. There were actually a lot of Riding with Dino was in this race, so I want everyone to watch the 3. Riding with Dino, who is the 7, Edison, that you like, and the 5. Watch the 3 and the 5. I'm going to let this run through, but especially watch the 5 here, which again is the 4 on Saturday. You'll see the start here. You see the 5 got bumped and lost some ground, and you see right there, I mean, that's a good, 2 lengths already in a 5-furlong turf sprint. To me, that's a pretty big difference, Edison, and I'll just let it run through. I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So people can watch here. Again, the 3 is getting a nice hit. The 5, by the way, is all the way here, very wide. Right here is the 5 with my arrow, losing a lot more ground, while the 3 Riding with Dino is right here. You'll see what I mean, Edison. I mean, right here, if I stopped it right here, Edison, you're home, right? I mean, how is the 3 going to lose this race? But somehow the 2 comes over the top, and the 5, the horse I like a lot on Saturday, closes big time. And watch the gallop out also here, Edison. I'm going to let it run. We'll see it right here. Here's the 5 right here. I mean, blowing by the 3 and really going by the winner as well. So I very much like the 4 in this race on Saturday. My only concern, Edison, is the fact there's not a ton of early speed, and Aligato can't be too far back. So your 7 might get the jump. The 2 is very likely also Bricks, who just might be faster than all these, but is 2 for 17 and is already going to be a 6-year-old. So I'm not so sure about that. Any other thoughts on this last race, Edison?
Yeah, I mean, obviously using the 2 here on a bit of a class drop. The only other one that I find a little interesting, and I know that I use this one in the pick 5 ticket I use as the 5, who, has ran some interesting races here at Los Aldamar, here on the California circuit, including 2 victories in a row, and kind of interested here by this horse going to turf here. He gets a 333 in the figures for, I always forget, Howard, you probably can tell me who they're named after, but those figures like in parentheses there in the numbers tell you, how well the horse should run on turf, that kind of stuff. He gets a 333 and he gets a 429 on the distance on the turf. So, the pedigree would indicate that maybe he does want the turf here. So, I mean, based on speed figures, based on the way he's ran on dirt, if any of that can translate to turf, and obviously there's plenty of dirt options for them to run this horse in if they wanted to stay on dirt. So that's kind of the angle there that I'll throw that one into the pick 5 ticket as well. But otherwise, not much else for me to say on this race.
Yeah, so the dam is Dia Zeni, I think it's pronounced. And by the way, those numbers in parentheses are called Tomlinson numbers. Edison.
Always forget that. I always forget that.
Listen, that's okay. But, I found those numbers to be strange. You look at the dam here, Edison, you can see the PPs of the dam. I mean, not much turf to go on. And you look at the siblings here, I mean, really, obviously, not much on the turf at all. You go to the family tree. I mean, I guess there's Harlan's Holiday on the dam side, the second family, but I don't know. That Tomlinson number sort of surprised me, but I do understand it. I just figured, I'm going to bring us back on screen here, Edison. I just figured if a closer is going to win, it's going to be the 2 or the 4. So last thing I'll mention before we go to our picks, I have the 12 in there, Too Late. Now, Too Late, by the way, was in that replay race that we watched, and Too Late was not good at all. Puts blinkers on, and Gutierrez, and O'Neill is a very good combination. When this horse is right, he's got a lot of speed. I'm thinking that Gutierrez is going to send from the outside and give riding with Dino a lot of trouble. And I wouldn't be completely shocked if Too Late wins because Doug O'Neill is very good with these square eddies on the turf, but he would be a long shot. I much prefer the 2 and especially the 4 horse. All right, let's get to our pick 5 selections. Let me see. We got some comments here. Michael Bryant, who is talks about the 14. The 14 isn't also eligible, Michael, so I'm assuming the 14 is not going to get in. But if the 14 gets in, I think he's someone you might want to take a look at. He's also for Mario Run Racing. So if the 14 gets in, Michael, I would take a look and see who Mario Gutierrez is riding because I think that's going to be a big tell for me. And Dean, thanks for joining the show. He likes the 13 of First Perez. Or actually, I think it's First Perez, isn't it? First Perez, there's no extra E there. So anyway, there are different ways that you can go. Addison, let's get into our pick 5s here as we wrap up the show. I'm going to go ahead and bring on our tickets. Now, I asked Edison, ladies and gentlemen, to take off the PPs here, folks. Usually I ask the viewers to give a sub $100 pick 5 ticket, but I asked Edison to give a sub $50 ticket because the field sizes are sort of small. Edison, first question before we get into your ticket. When you see, whether it's thoroughbreds or the harness horses, when you see a pick 5 sequence and the field sizes are a bit smaller, do you tend to be more aggressive and try to crush it and hit it more than once, or do you just play one smaller ticket and just hit it once?
Well, first thing, Howard, sorry, it's probably my fault when I sent you my selections, but the $48 is correct on this ticket, but we are using the 1 in that first leg as well, so it's 167.
Okay, I can change that on the fly. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. Probably my fault. But, yeah, so, I talked about this a little bit on my show, actually, this week, that the New Year's Eve sequence at Woodbine Mohawk in the early pick 5, I think you're looking at a sequence with maybe not small field, but at the very least, I don't think very many horses that can contend in each race. So in that case, yeah, I think for sure you've got to try to hit the thing more than once if you don't think it's going to pay, a lot. So this might be one of those 2 that, I'm glad you even used the word here in our picks. It's a caveman pick 5. You might want to try to get more selective here, try to go an A, B, C route, which admittedly I don't do as often as I probably should. But, if you make some A, B, and C tickets and, the all A's, the A's with 1B, go through the full process, take the time to actually do it, then for sure, if this thing only ends up paying $200-300, but you have it 5 or 6 times, then we're looking pretty good, right?
I'm going to go on a limb and say that 200 is a pipe dream. I don't even think it's going to pay 200. But again, Edison brings up, you stole the words right out of my mouth, Edison. as I believe you know, I'm an ABC player, so I do give caveman tickets on the show because Edison, we have some people that aren't as familiar with the ABC process, and I like to make things a little simplistic for those viewers as well. This is absolutely a perfect example, Edison, of playing an ABC because I'm going to do exactly as you said. I'm going to try to hit that all A's, for $2. I'll try to hit the A's 1B for maybe $1.50 or $1. I think this is a perfect sequence where a lot of people might not play it because they're like, oh, I don't want to play all these low prices. But folks, listen, there's nothing wrong with hitting a pick 5 that pays $80 5 times, right? That's the same thing as hitting it once for 400. So, to me, there's a lot of ways to play it. Edison, I noticed you're not going with any singles. If you had to single, because I had a very tough decision, I'm going to give you two choices: luck or as time goes by. If I had to give you a choice of those two, who would you single?
Well, you know what? That's kind of an easy answer for me. I'm gonna have to go with luck goes by, just because you heard me say when we were discussing Moves Unusual that I really thought that might be the favorite. Obviously, worth I liked in there with luck, so I would have to go as time goes by with those options.
Yeah, I completely understand that. You can see Edison's ticket there. I'll go ahead and bring on my ticket. Cheaper than I usually show on the show. Edison, I'm doing two things on the show that I almost never do. One is give out a $42 ticket. I usually show a little bigger ticket, but I almost never hit the all button. To me, if you're going to hit an all button, that means you have no opinion. I have an opinion in the first leg, Edison, but I got to be honest. I just don't have a strong opinion. And folks, please don't hit the all button. And Edison, I'm sure you can expound on this and agree with this. Don't hit the all button just because it's the first leg and you want to stay alive. You're wasting money. It makes no sense at all to do that. I'm playing the all button in the first leg because honestly, Edison, I think all 7 can win, and I just don't have a strong opinion. So that's why I'm hitting the all button there. I am singling luck. I have to say, as time goes by, I think might be more likely winner, but I think as time goes by, will be like 3-5, and I think luck will be more like 7-5 or 8-5. So it's more of a value situation for me, Edison, I have to say. But I do like luck quite a bit. I'm just trying to single a horse that not everyone else would be singling in the pick 5. What do you think about that logic, or is that stinking thinking?
No, I can't blame you there for sure. I think taking a stand in that third leg is for sure going to increase your payout should you hit it. I was taking a big stand against Mutual Unusual, and it's funny you say that on the all button in the first leg. I was just about to say for your comment there, maybe I should start doing that more because I don't know how many times I've been knocked out of the first leg and like every ticket I've ever given out in my life. So if I'm going to press an all button, maybe it should be in the first leg.
Yeah, well, again, I don't have to tell you what to do, but for those handicappers, out there that are maybe less experienced, again, folks, do not hit the all button in the first leg just because you want to stay alive. In general, many times, Edison, if there's an all button in the first leg, I'll just skip the pick 5 and play the pick 4. But the reason why I'm not doing it on Saturday is because the legs 2 through 5, I can go pretty skinny, Edison. So I feel, okay, I can just go ahead and hit the all button in the pick 5. But otherwise, I'd probably skip the pick 5 and play the pick 4. Last question before we move on. Michael, how often do you look at the 2 picks and take a stand with a single? Edison, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sorry, Howard, I'll go back to what you said there for a second. Yeah, for sure. As you mentioned, that was maybe the other thing I was going to say was, if you do press an all button in the first leg, depending on the circumstances, but, if you are in the first leg and the pick 4 is there as an option, it could be a better option because if you press the all button and get that favorite in the first leg, then you should have just, played your pick 4 ticket 7 times and just hit that 7 times instead of getting that favorite, So at the very least, maybe throw out the favorite or 2 in the first leg if you at least don't like them. But for this one, obviously in an idyllic world, we've all got unlimited bankrolls and just play whatever we want, right? But of course we don't. So, there are times when I will look at 2 horses and have to make a stand against them. And, I like the way you did it, Howard. If you're going to have to do it, I think you do want to do it in a race where if you like a short price like luck will be, at the very least, if Mutual Unusual is another short price in that field, if you take a stand between one of those 2, you're doing better than people like myself who's just going to take both of them and hopefully flip the page to the next race.
I agree with that, Edison. And Michael, I will say, I think this is a huge mistake that handicappers make, especially those of you that are a little less experienced or maybe don't play a lot of horizontals. It makes no sense. No sense at all. And this is how I feel a little about the luck race. No sense to go too deep with an 8-5 and 9-5. I know there's people out there that disagree with that, That's absolutely fine. You're getting no value, folks. You're doubling your ticket with a horse that's exactly the same price. Michael, if you're going to go too deep, then pick like an 8-5 and like a 6-1. I think if you're going to go with two horses, Edison, that are low price, you got to take a stand. You're not getting the value you need, which is why, Michael, you shouldn't play a caveman ticket with those two, but you can play what I do, like an ABC, where one of my top choices is an A, and then maybe a Mucho Unusual Edison will be a B for me. So I am weighting them differently, even though I do feel strongly about both of them. Edison, I really appreciate it. Listen,
hey,
these
Howard,
are great.
If I could, Howard, just the last caveat I'll say to that. One exception, though, I will say, in a general sequence like this, I think that's true. But I think if it is a mandatory situation, or as an example, the Meadowlands this Friday, if you're looking at a big carryover, sometimes in the right sequences, I think your challenge is not really worrying what it's going to pay. You just want to have a winning ticket. So in that case, I think it is okay taking 8-5 and 9-5 personally. But in this case, I can agree with you that you probably want to take a stand somehow.
I think, Edison, that is an excellent point as I go and bring on the banner here on the bottom there so people can see what's coming up next. Edison, I was about to say, because you were going to be, as of about 5 hours ago, you were about to be my very last guest in the year 2021, but I don't know if you heard, there's a huge $195,000 double pick six carryover at Aqueduct tomorrow. It's $1 pick six, so I'm going to have a show, folks, tomorrow morning live. Edison, maybe you want to check it out. Who knows? Maybe you'll dabble into that. 10:30 a.m. on the East Coast, Eastern Standard Time, 10:30. I have Paul Halloran, who's a fantastic handicapper and journalist out in New York. Him and we are going to chop up the pick six at Aqueduct. It is a can't miss carryover, mandatory payout. And again, the Meadowlands, Edison, remind everyone about Meadowlands tomorrow as well.
Yeah, I mentioned the pick 5. There's also a pick 6. So we have 14 races tomorrow night. East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Meadowlands. Anyone in the area, a lovely buffet downstairs, free champagne, a free 2022 commemorative calendar giveaway for the first 500 people. So if you're there close in person, definitely go. But if not, wagering from home, $39,000 in the early pick 5, races 1-5. 20-cent minimum wager, and then also races 8 through 13, just over $6,000 in that 20-cent pick 6 pool. And again, Howard, there's not a whole lot going on tomorrow night. Thoroughbreds, harnesses, quarter horses, greyhounds, whatever you want. So for sure, these should be some fantastic pools to wager into tomorrow night at the Meadowlands.
Let's close out with a 2022 New Year's resolution, Edison.
Oh, not to bet in January. You know what I talk about this on my show. To be honest, the last couple years, my November and December months, just as a whole, are fantastic gambling months for me. January has historically always been one of my worst months, so I guess to maybe kind of take a little bit of a break here in January.
Well, I'm too much of a degenerate, so that's not happening here. Well, but I do like that. I'm sorry, say again?
You said that's the resolution. It doesn't mean it'll happen.
For sure. Edison, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. I think a lot of people enjoyed listening to you and your selections, and we wish you the best of luck with whatever you're going to be doing going forward. You can hear Edison many different ways through harness racing, especially whether it be calling it Rosecroft or calling it Freehold or Meadowlands, wherever else. Edison, thanks for being on the show. We look forward to having you on the show for sure in 2022. Happy New Year, young man. Take care of yourself, and thanks, Dan, for being on the show.
Thanks, Howard. Appreciate it. Happy to be back anytime. And Happy New Year to you and your family as well. And hopefully you're enjoying those last couple of days of winter break here before you got to get back to teaching.
Oh, you got to remind me. Thanks a lot, Edison. Really appreciate it. Take care. All righty. Good night. All righty, folks. That was Edison Hatter. What a great guy and very knowledgeable. Knows the game well. Thoroughbreds and harness. Really happy to have Edison on the show. Again, tomorrow night, folks. Tomorrow morning. 10:30 Eastern Standard Time in the morning. Come right back here on the HHH Racing podcast for the preview of the Pick 6 carryover, $195,000 in the pool at Aqueduct on Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 103 of the HHH Racing podcast. I've been your host, Howard Kravitz. Thanks for joining me tonight. If you cannot join us tomorrow morning, Happy New Year to everyone out there. Good luck on Saturday at Santa Anita. Take care. Good night.